I just thought you'd find that interesting. So I'm a little breathless. It's by design. So anyway, I guess we can start the show right here. Darryl Edwards is his name. If you don't know about this guy by now, you don't follow my work, because I brag on you all the time, Darryl. I loved you from the day that you and I met at Paleo FX in 2012. I don't know why we came so strong so fast, but we did. But Fitness Explorer is who he is over on Instagram. I know you do a lot of things, but is that where you're active the most? Is Instagram and maybe Facebook?
Yeah, Instagram, my blog. I suppose that's probably the best place, primalplay.com. But
that's funny, because I kind of shut down my blog because I wasn't getting near the interaction as I was on social media and obviously on my podcast. And so stopped blogging, and now I do kind of the mini blogging, which is what social media is. But cool. So is it primalplay.com?
Primalplay.com, yeah.
So guys, you have not seen Darryl's work, definitely go check out all of his Primal Play concepts. You're the one that kind of got me when I'm walking around somewhere different and I'm going, okay, all right, I can make this work as my gym. So you've ungimified me, because I was a gym guy for many years until I met Darryl Edwards. And then I realized, that's stupid. That's such a waste of money. Like, what am I doing? I can get all the benefits of a gym and then some, and get the benefit of being outside, having sun, fresh air, all the things you talked about for years. Are you seeing that that's becoming more of a trend, that people are becoming ungimified?
Yeah, I suppose, it's funny, because on the one hand, I mean, I think gym memberships are up. So there were more in the UK and similar in the US, there were more gyms than ever before. I mean, this is kind of pre-lockdown, and obviously there could be economic consequences. Lots of gyms are closing because of what's happening with the pandemic. But I think, there were more gyms than ever before. There are more options available to be fit than ever before, to get fit. But I suppose it's, if you can reduce some of the barriers. So for some people, cost is going to be one barrier. Having a long-term commitment to a gym membership may be a barrier. Not feeling great about attending, the peer pressure, not feeling like you fit in, not knowing what to do. All of those could be barriers to entry. If you can do movement at home, in your back garden, in your local park, then you've just got another option available to you, which doesn't rely on the gym. And I would certainly say that the best gym equipment you have is yourself. And the best environment you have is usually where you reside, wherever you are. So if you can utilize that and or use a gym, then I think that's the better of all worlds, really. So I try to cater for people who probably don't necessarily love exercise, who probably don't love going to the gym, but they recognize that getting more movement would be beneficial for them. So that's a niche that I cover.
Right. Well, and I think most people in general, Darryl, know they need to be moving. I think the intimidation factor is when they hear that moving, they think walking on a treadmill or running on a treadmill or running down the road. I see runners all the time out here on my main street, or going to the gym and, really. So they have this kind of negative connotation when it comes to exercise. And what you've done so brilliantly in your work is, no, guys, it's not about that. Moving your body does not require you to fit within a box of what your preconceived notion of that is. Just move. And I think just getting people to have it in a fun way, it takes away all those barriers. And then they start doing it and they're like, why is my heart rate up? Why am I breathing heavy? And they don't realize you're getting all the benefits that all those gym rats are getting.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. So we were, just as it's important for us to eat in a way that our body benefits from, it's exactly the same with movement. So humans were not designed to be sedentary. We weren't designed to be physically inactive. It's just as important as the food we eat, because without movement, ancestrally speaking, without movement, we wouldn't have obtained food. So whether we were hunting food or gathering food or scavenging food or farming for food, whatever we did to produce food, either individually or collectively, the majority of our time on the planet was spent using a significant amount of physical exertion to obtain our food, to build shelter, to protect our communities, to socialize, to be nomadic, going from place A to B. So before the horse and cart, we'd have to travel great distances to survive, I suppose, is the key here. And so now in the 21st century, where we don't have to move, movement is not mandatory. We can pretty much achieve all of our life goals in an armchair.
I would say it's the opposite. Not only are we not required to move, we're being encouraged not to move. We're having like delivery from Amazon. We're having like DoorDash and Grubhub. I mean, everything's coming to you.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's even worse than just not having the need to move. Now we're being encouraged not to move even more. Like, oh my God, I have to go out to my mailbox and get my mail. I'm out of breath. It's like,
and it's understandable. I mean, I understand why it feels, humans have a driver for convenience. That's what's enabled us to achieve all of the good we've achieved in the world has come about by thinking, how can we do this better? How can we do this differently? How can I make life more convenient for me? Some of that has obviously led to harm as well. It hasn't all been advantageous, but in many respects, that's what's delivered significant amount of benefits. Our utilization of technology, labor-saving devices to help with locomotion. Technology means now you can order the perfect meal and have it delivered. You could probably even have it cooked beforehand, so it's ready, piping hot, ready to go. The only thing that's probably missing is you probably still need to feed yourself. So yeah, we haven't got to the stage of having an intravenous kind of feeding operation available for humans, but I'm sure that may come in the future. It's like, hey, don't even waste your time chewing or eating your food. Just a syringe is all you need. Good to go, and we'll do it for you. Don't even think about doing it yourself.
Making light of it, Darryl, but don't put it past these people, man. They're trying. We're basically headed towards Wall-E. Have you ever seen that movie?
Oh, yeah.
People in the floaty chairs, and it's like we're almost there.
Yeah. No, we are. So we have to, challenging. I know sometimes within the wellness space, there's this big conversation around challenging convention and conventional wisdom, and almost like rebelling against what's convention, because oftentimes conventional wisdom can either be currently proven to be wrong, or can certainly historically can be proven to be incorrect. And if that message is still the mainstream, we have to battle against it. I would also argue there's another C that we should be combating, and that's convenience. And we should challenge convenience, because convenience are one of the reasons why we make less healthful health decisions. It's more convenient to get fast food at a drive-through of process. It's easier to consume processed foods. It's easier to make some of those decisions. It's easier for me to sit in my armchair being entertained virtually than it is to actually get out of my chair and physically do stuff. It's easier for me to pay if I have the means. It's easier for me to pay for housework to be done than for me to do it myself. So this is the reality of convenience. And sometimes we have to challenge convention, yes, but also challenge convenience and take the more difficult path, the road that isn't as frequently traveled, because that's the way we grow and we adapt, hopefully in a beneficial way.
I'll add another C to that list. Let's add complacency, because I think sometimes people get so used to what they know that they don't want to change. And that's not just in movement, that's in every aspect of life, what you eat, how you raise your kids, blah, 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 blah. And I think complacency is what keeps people stuck in this notion where they come up with excuses. And I love it when I've been in some of your talks and where you do an active demonstration of your primal play. And when people aren't doing well at it, they come up with all these excuses. And I love how you call them out on it, like immediately. Okay, why do you feel that way? What's going on? This is why you're saying this. And it's just, he has become so much a part of our normal lives that I don't even think we notice it anymore.
Yeah, no, I think it's it's okay to be challenged, whether that's intellectually, whether that's emotionally, whether that's physically. It's okay to be challenged. It's how you deal with that.
Right.
It's how you decide that stimulus, that external stimulus, which is saying this is awkward, this is difficult, this is uncomfortable. What do I do with this information? So if my body is telling me this is challenging me and it shouldn't be challenging me, or this is uncomfortable and it shouldn't be uncomfortable, what can I do to make sure it's less comfortable in future? You know, if I'm in pain, listen to those signals. Why am I in pain? Am I in pain because of overuse, or am I in pain because of underuse, of underutilization, of atrophy of muscles and joints? And those are questions we should be asking ourselves, and that prevents kind of stasis and a stalemate. And it's important. I mean, when I started my journey, and I suppose I was deciding what I was most passionate about. So movement was certainly one of my first decisions that I made. Physical activity was my gateway to improving my health. And once I decided what I was going to do for my sort of food protocol, so to speak, I was like, what do I really feel most passionate about? And for me, it was movement, hands down. And so I had to consider, what about the people who don't feel that's their number one? That would be their number one choice. Those who feel they can't fall in love with exercise or movement, or find it difficult, or are in pain, or have mobility issues, or really struggle for whatever reason, whether it's because of their childhood, how they were, affected by their physical education lessons at school, they weren't picked for the team sports, or they were a former jock and they never got injured, or they got out of condition, and they're like, how can I get that feeling back? And so I suppose I started off thinking about elitism in some respect, the catering for the fit people, catering for the people who really want to push themselves and excel. And I've shifted significantly from my early days to this more inclusive mechanism of primal play, which is trying to embrace as many people as possible.
When I first met you, Darryl, MoveNat was a big movement, and what was the CrossFit was really big. There was all like really elite athlete thing, and here you come along. MoveNat was pretty similar to you, but it was just kind of all these different movements. And all of them were catered to the elite athlete or the weekend athlete. None were to people like myself and others who are active but need something to motivate us a little more. And so I was really took that in the direction of the more common consumer.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think those systems have their place, but they do tend to target a certain demographic. They do tend to have people who look a certain way, and who probably go, people look at it and go, oh, I want to do that. I want to look like that. I want to be that person. And then the vast majority of people are like, I don't see myself. That isn't me. I just see discomfort. I see people punishing themselves to get there. And there's an absence of joy, I suppose. There's an absence of pleasure and of fun. So I wanted to combine the fun element, but also the seriousness of what I do, because we have to, as I say, we have to be challenging ourselves. We have to take on board these physical stressors in order to adapt to physical activity. Otherwise, it's not beneficial. So I suppose that's the difference between, say, physical activity and exercise versus, say, diet or sleep or stress management. Is that you don't have to just doing something isn't necessarily enough. You have to be doing something of the right quantity, the right quality of movement. The body doesn't adapt with the same stimulus. So if let's imagine I'm eating to get into ketosis, and I manage to stay in ketosis, and I'm getting all of these benefits, and my markers are improving. You could stay that way. You're like, everything's good. I can stay this way. I'm getting the benefits. This is exactly where I want to be. But if you did that with movement, you would have diminishing returns after a while, because your body adjusts. Your body gets stronger. Your body goes, okay, I can now walk 4 miles without a problem, without getting out of breath. I can run up a flight of stairs without a problem. I can lift X weight without an issue. But that's just telling your body to say, you know, you need to be, if you want to get stronger now, you need to lift heavier. If you want to have better cardiovascular health, you need to be able to walk longer. You need to be able to do more of these things in better form, that's more functional. So I think that's the one of the, in my opinion, one of the beauties of movement actually is the versatility that's available, the amount of exploration that's available. That's what fascinates me, and it's important. I feel it's important.
And the scalability, like I remember being in one of your sessions where you had like a little bitty kid, like 5, 6 years old, and then you had people like me, and then you had Ben Greenfield, you had all these kind of different levels of ability, and you challenged all of us to scale to that level that pushes us to our brink to get to that next level.
Yeah, no, and I think that's exactly what I think play is about. It's this equalization that's based on your individual ability and the ability of you to work with others. So whether you're doing this in a silo, whether you're working with a partner or with a group, you hopefully figure out what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, how you can work together and collaborate to achieve that. And certainly for me as a kid, when we often think about, and people often quote about, be like a kid again, and think about how great everything was when you were a kid. Certainly one of the things I do remember about childhood play is that you would often pick challenging, difficult, risky pursuits. You wouldn't always select the easiest way of doing something, because you thrive, most of us do thrive on again, that personal development, on that challenge of figuring something out about yourself. And it's the same for as adults. We should be doing exactly the same. So it's not the fact that I'm using a 6-year-old and, you know, an elite athlete and somebody who's 65 and trying to get them all to do the same thing. It's getting them to push and challenge themselves, which is scaled to their individual ability and need and age and skill and everything else. So the effect, I suppose, is identical regardless of skill, age, heritage, whatever. It's the effort that they're putting in. It's their experience, I feel, which is identical. And I suppose that's universal. That aspect of movement is universal. The pleasure we get from moving in a way that brings us joy is universal. Wherever we're from, if people are celebrating a wedding, there tends to be some dancing. You know, that tends to happen. There's some merriment, there's some dancing. People have a few drinks, they go on the dance floor. You know, people celebrate these occasions in different ways, of course, but pretty much anywhere you go in the world, that would tend to be the outcome of celebration, some movement, a gathering, a collective gathering. And so if I was 90 years old, of course, I'm not going to be moving in the same way as somebody who's 21, but certainly I would have that desire, you know, even if I'm using my walking sticks, you know, I would still have that desire, you know. So it's still within us. It's more a case of what are we able to do. And just look at the Paralympic Games, for example. There's your evidence right there of people who are saying, I have all of these significant limitations, but I will do whatever I can to maximize what I can do. So I already know what I can't do. You know, I already know what I can't do, what's difficult for me to do, what's impossible for me to do. But I'm going to do all I can to still push myself and still achieve the best that I can. And so I feel everyone has that ability. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who we are. It doesn't matter what burdens we have, what mobility issues we have, whatever we're dealing with in terms of what life is throwing at us. We can still have this, well, hold on a second. Okay, right. I can't run a 5K race. I can't. But I can certainly go for a walk. I can certainly go for a hike. I can get a dog, which might make it a little bit easier for me to go out every single day. I could probably spend a little bit more time doing some manual labor around the house. You know, there are ways to nudge ourselves there rather than thinking it's all or nothing. You know, I would hate doing a marathon. For example, just because I like movement, it doesn't mean I want to prove to the world that I am an elite athlete and I can just do all these amazing, great feats of endurance and strength and the like. I choose what I really love to do, whether whether people approve of it or not. I realize this is one way I can keep myself motivated and make it sustainable for me. And that's what I want to teach, I suppose, is create a way that you can make movement sustainable and motivational for you so that you can keep going.
You hit on something in there I want to underscore a little stronger in case people missed it. Most people will look at, I can't run a 5K, so therefore in their mind, the way they rationalize challenging that is, I'll do nothing. Rather than, I can't run a 5K, but I can do this thing that's less than a 5K that's still more than doing nothing. But people go right to the do nothing. Is that a mindset issue? What's going on in people's brains that's making them think it's all or nothing?
I suppose it's like over-analyzing, and analysis paralysis of thinking I can only achieve the benefit if I go all out. So, and I suppose that in some respects I understand, because I used to have that mindset as well. From my previous career in sort of investment banking and technology, it was all or nothing. If you're going to do it right. It's got to be perfect. If it's not, you're going to get fired. That's that was it. Do it right or go home. And so now I recognize that even when I know what I should be doing, how often, all the things that I feel that I know are beneficial for my health, I still don't always make the best decisions every single time. I'm not perfect. I'm not a monk. And so if I, even with all of this knowledge, even with my experiences, even with the before and after that, can go, oh my goodness, I felt the best ever when I did this, that, and the other, I can still slip and fall short of that. So why do we, I suppose, punish ourselves for imperfection? And why not reward ourselves for progress, however small? So for me, if I think that food quality is important, nutrient density is important. So if somebody said to me, you know what, I'm eating fast food all the time, I'm eating lots of, sodas, and I know I've got a really awful diet, Darryl. I've heard what you eat, and it's awful in comparison. And somebody said, right, from tomorrow, I'm going to do exactly what you do. Bam. Actually, I'd say to myself, are you able to continue doing so? What are your motivations for doing this? What are your justifications for doing this? Are you just going to do this for a week or two and then go back to the old ways and probably go back even harder than where you are right now? And for some people, maybe a little nudge, the nudge theory, I think is really important. Just a little bit of a shift. And so for me, when I changed my diet, I remember there were certain things I could do big bang. One day to the next, I am not going to eat that anymore. I'm not going to drink that anymore. No problems. Never went back to that. There were other things that I needed to shift slowly, like over a significant amount of time. And I was just like, I remember my last, whatever, I'm not going to mention the foods, but I do remember there were certain days I was like, this is going to be my last piece of this. And I'm like, oh, I'm really savoring this and this. Oh my goodness, I'm gonna miss this so much. And oh, why am I doing this? But there were certain things that I had to wean myself off. There's no, I confess, I had to do that. And so why is movement any different?
Right.
And so we do pick the grand objectives when we're about to embark on lifestyle change. Do something for 30 days perfectly. Book yourself for a marathon 6 months from now, and that's the goal. And so if we don't achieve those goals, we feel awful. Whereas actually, if you just decide to get out of your armchair more often, that's already something to celebrate. It's like, oh my goodness, I'm less sedentary than I was the day before. That's progress. And I'm more health. It's more healthy to be in that state than I was the day before. And that's what I think I've come to that realization now. Don't let the perfect get in the way of the good, as they say. And moderation, I know can sometimes be a dirty word, but I feel if moderation means you can have long-term motivation, long-term satisfaction with the decisions that you're making, where you don't feel judgmental, you don't feel like a failure, you're not beating yourself up. I think that's a better place to be. And fine, you may not get all of the benefits as if you were doing something 100%. But as you mentioned earlier, it's far better than you just doing nothing because you're like, oh, it's so overwhelming. It's such a challenge to me. Why would I do anything? I have no idea what I should do to start. Actually, just start with what's easiest for you to do. Start with something you enjoy. Start with something that means you're likely to want to do it, not just today, but tomorrow. Exercise, I feel the best time to start exercise is usually like next week, next Monday. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll sign up next week. And it's not just exercise, it's the same with lots of lifestyle choices. Like, yeah, I'll do it another time when I feel up to it, rather than thinking, I can do something now, even if it's small,
right?
That takes me one step closer. And every journey starts with the first step. It's as simple as that, no matter what you're trying to achieve. So yeah, I think it's one of the downsides to this aspirational, inspirational vision that people see, especially on social media, any form of media. They do tend to see the perfect. They're like, yeah, everything is great. Look what I've done. Look what I've achieved. And we don't tend to see as many of the failures. And so that's where we see ourselves. We want to see just success. And if we don't see that success, if we don't feel it immediately, we don't get that instant gratification, we beat ourselves up. And whenever we have any problems, I had some issues when my sister passed away, like awful, mental health issues, and dealing with depression. And I tell you something for nothing, like some of my knowledge around what I should be doing just went out of the window. I couldn't care less about eating healthy foods. I didn't care about exercising at that point or moving. I was just happy sitting in my couch playing my games console every hour of the day. And when I got out of that, actually, it literally was me saying to myself, I'm just going to do something else. I didn't decide, yeah, right, I'm going to go to the park and spend 10 hours playing all day. And yeah, I literally just said to myself, you know what, let me just go for a walk to the park for 5 minutes and see how I feel. And because that felt really good, I did it for a little bit longer, and I slowly, gradually got out of that funk that I was in. So I was happy I was in that dark place, not because I was happy being in a dark place, but of experiencing that, I had more empathy, I suppose, for others who feel a similar way. And I also recognize the power of emotions being more important than intellect and knowledge, because that doesn't always help you. Just having access to the right information isn't always the savior if you're not able to act on it. So my job now with Primer Play is to try to make my information more accessible, is to try to make it more seductive, not in the false way, not by offering false promises, but by saying, look, we can, if we do want to move more in a way that is satisfying to us, then maybe we need to try something different. Because if you've been doing that and it hasn't worked for you all this time, it's not going to magically work for you from tomorrow. So maybe a slight shift will get us there. Yeah.
So let's go there, because these past 3-4 months have sucked, and a lot of people are dealing with anxiety and depression and stress unlike any time in their life. And that's on top of all the stuff that was already there before COVID-19 and the race relations, other stuff that's now got them all amped up and hyped. And so, a lot of people are just like, okay, if I'm so amped up and hyped, I think I need to deal with that first. So talk a little more about, after your sister's cancer death, what were the things besides living in the moment of just trying to zone out and playing the video games and all the things at some point your brain did something that said, what are you doing, Darryl? I got to get out of this. Talk about how that could apply to people right now that might be in that down and depressed time because of all that's happened.
Yes, I suppose, For me, the eureka moment was me recognizing I was getting there was just no joy. I suppose there's a really good quote about defining what play is, and that the opposite of play isn't work. The opposite of play is depression. And that's what sums up the importance of play for me. It's because play means, if there's no play, it means no comedy, no fun, no laughter, no joy, no play. That's basically what the absence of play means. So there's a point when I recognized there was nothing giving me any joy. Even when I was playing the video games and I felt that was like satisfying, it was almost like a numbing experience. I was just almost like a zombie, I suppose. I wasn't really getting any fulfillment. I was just existing, floating. Nothing else mattered apart from this. And I was, lying to my partner about what I was doing during the day. I obviously wasn't as productive because I wasn't working. I was, on the computer game all the time. And so my life certainly, I felt things weren't good. And all I knew was I had to get outside, I suppose. After spending day after day after day after day cooped up in a really tiny apartment, I was like, I've got to get outside. I've got to see if there's something out there that's going to make me feel better. And that's what I chose. I was like, I just need to choose one thing which is going to be helpful to me, that's going to make me feel better. And for some people, that might be a conversation with a friend or family or professional. It might be going for a walk. It might be deciding, you know what, I'm going to do a hobby, or I'm going to take up something that I used to really love. So I think seeking out pleasure and joy in some of those dark moments, again, taking a small step, I think is one way out of that. And once I started doing that, once I went for my walk, then I started to remember all the reasons why I was going to feel better. So I knew I was going to get some serotonin by going outside. I knew seeing the color green and being in nature was going to be beneficial. So I intellectually started to understand again after I had that emotional, like, this is what it feels like going outside, smelling the fresh air, people watching, nature watching. I've missed this. I've actually, oh my goodness, I had no idea how great this feels. And I just think I believe everyone has a similar sort of trigger. And for me, it was going out to my local park, but I can't say that's going to be a solution for everyone. And in terms of movement, we do know movement helps reduce depression and anxiety, and it does help with mental health issues. There's lots of research supporting exercise being good for mental health, being out in nature being good for mental health, reducing stress. So anyone who does feel, especially in a time of this crisis, like paralyzed, what do I do? I have no idea. I feel I can't control the situation around me. I suppose that's one of the number one issues around anxiety and mental health issues, is feeling as if life is outside of your control. I can't control all these things that are happening around me, and I want to get my life back. I want to get control back. I wanted to be able to bring my sister back. I wanted to be able to heal her. I wanted to have that control, and I didn't. So I punished myself afterwards after she passed away. And me going out to the park and feeling good about life was me getting a little bit of control back. So it's a simple thing when you think about it, but it's a powerful thing. And so me experiencing that joy made me realize, yes, of course I miss my sister. Yes, of course I would do anything to have her back. But I can still experience a little bit of joy and a little bit of pleasure. And I don't have to feel guilty about this, about me having a good time in my local park, So that's what worked for me. And I would say anyone who's going through a difficult time right now, or feels that they may encounter a difficult time, if you can seek professional help, get it. Don't deal with this by yourself. If there is someone you can talk to who you feel will be understanding and compassionate, speak to those individuals, because of course not everyone is understanding, not everyone is compassionate. You have to make the right decision, the right calls when you are feeling that way, because people can make you feel worse, even though they don't intend to.
Right.
You know, they're not people aren't usually trying to make you feel worse when you're feeling low. But I remember feeling that no one understands. No one's going to understand. But I need some help. I need to do some of the right things. So yeah, I think, you know, there are no simple solutions here. But if you do try to seek some joy, some pleasure that is meaningful, that is deep, that is not like a fast food. So like my computer was sort of like almost like self-medicating myself. I was like, you know, okay, I wasn't drinking, I wasn't gambling. There was lots of other things that I could be doing. And even that was a justification. I remember justifying to myself, well, I could be doing a lot worse, couldn't I? You know, I'm only playing a video game. How harmful is that? So I even used that I even tried to avoid what I was really dealing with by going, I'm just playing a computer game. Oh, isn't this fun?
Yeah.
But I wasn't facing up to how I was really feeling.
People do this.
Yeah.
To Darryl. They're like,
Yes.
not drugs, it's not alcohol, it's just food, and everybody needs to eat. So you start rationalizing in your head. And
Yes.
I same thing, by the way. That's why my heart broke for you when you lost your sister. I lost my brother now 12 years ago, and years old. And you should have seen people say some things that they thought was good, and you kind of go, I just wish you hadn't said anything at all, because
Yes.
it seems at the moment a good thing, but then you kind of go, okay, just no. So
Yeah. Yes. No. Yes. And you know, it's bizarre because until it happened to me, I didn't understand. You know, I know that I've had conversations with people where they've lost someone or they're grieving. I know I've made those four part. You know, I'm like, I've said some of those things where I go, oh, now I know what it feels like.
yes,
Sometimes you're better off not saying anything at all. Not
yes,
because you don't care, but because actually somebody just they want to vent, they want to share how they're feeling. It
right,
has nothing to do with me or my experiences. You know, like me talking about I remember losing my dog. You know, like I had even some of those conversations, you know,
right.
like I know what it's like to lose your ex because I lost my dog when I was 5. Like, really? Do you really think that's comparable? You know what I mean? But people said things like that to me. And I'm like, just take a deep breath. So, but I know I had similar conversations, and again, I don't want to feel guilty about it because it was a bit of ignorance. I didn't know, I didn't understand, you know, and now I do understand. You know, now I'm kind of like, okay, now I have an idea what this feels like,
That's
and yeah,
that's a nice transition into talking about some of the race relation stuff, because this is new to a lot of people in the white community who are trying to understand various nuances of the discussion and how
mm,
language matters and how you say things matters and understanding perspectives matters. And this
mm,
rust upon a lot of white people that not once in their life have they had to deal with it until the death of George Floyd made it all too clear. Oh my gosh, kind of like the understanding of, oops, I used to do the same thing before I lost my sister. Now a lot
yeah,
of people are going, oh my gosh, I was doing all those things. Now I kind of get it a little more. And
mm,
I know this is something that you're passionate about. We could definitely talk for hours about this topic. I don't want to get too deep into it, but I definitely want to hear,
mm,
how do you think those conversations are going? Do you think it's genuine? And I'm also going to add to that,
mm,
got this article just yesterday from medium.com about a health wellness industry organization trying to
mm.
get white. Did you see this article
I
about
have.
white?
Yes, no, I saw that earlier today, actually.
And
So
it's got
yeah, very timely.
a lot of our friends in the health community are a part of that organization. So
Yeah.
address how the white community is changing, if they are, and then what do you think about that?
Um. Oh, Jimmy.
Be honest. I'm not.
Uh.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think. I suppose, when I came into the health and wellness industry, and I came from, as I mentioned earlier, I came from finance, investment banking, very cutthroat. And part of the reasons why I left was because I felt I wanted to help people. I felt that, and I felt that within that world, the wellness world, it would be far more inclusive, that there would be people who would be genuinely trying to help. And so there would be significant evidence of this. And there'll be less, so I felt things were going to be different. And I suppose the one lesson I've learned over the sort of 8 or 9 years that I've been focusing very much on what I'm doing now is there's been a succession of disappointments. And now I've got to the stage where actually I shouldn't really have been that disappointed, because if one believes, like as I do, that this problem is systemic, this problem is institutionalized, then why would wellness be any different? And so it isn't any different. And what has been disappointing, I suppose, recently, is that once this became a hot topic, once people decided to speak about this on all different sides of the fence, I was most disappointed when I saw people who tried to ally, who were like, you know what, I want to understand, or I want to kind of put a spotlight on this, and oh my goodness, I'm starting to kind of like realize what's happening here. I'm seeing things a little bit differently. It's seeing the significant, whether it's a significant minority or a significant majority of their followers who are like, we have no interest in that part of your journey. We have no interest in that part of your message. We don't want to hear it. That's not why we're here. And then some of the most extreme forms of that are just vile hate. And some of those people I knew. So that's probably the disappointment, where I'm like, oh my goodness, I know that person. Might be socially, just a social media handle. It might be somebody I've actually met, sat down, we've had a conversation with. It may be somebody who's bought my book. It may be somebody who admires my work. But this environment has exposed a lot of feelings. And probably the one area that I feel that is really difficult for people, it's really difficult for white people, is, again, this all or nothing. Like, I'm scared of doing the wrong thing. I'm scared of saying the wrong thing. I'm scared of misquoting, misdoing, like not, am I just going to cause offense because I said something? And so better, rather than me saying anything because I don't want to cause any offense, I'm not going to say anything at all. So I actually do understand how difficult it can be within this environment of wanting to improve matters, of wanting to make change, of feeling as if, can I do anything right? Because I'm now getting attacked. I'm now getting attacked by people of color because I thought I was doing the right thing. Then I corrected, I changed my viewpoints, and now I feel as if I'm on a better trajectory. And now I'm getting even more attacks, from different quarters. Why did I even begin this journey? What I would say to that is, I've always had to live with that. I've always had to live with, am I going to be making the right decision by being the person that I am based on the color of my skin? Yeah. Am I going to be judged differently in all different areas of life? And of course, no one wants to be a martyr. But if people just spent a second of their time thinking, if I was in another person's shoes, how would I feel about this? How would I want to react to this? How much responsibility do I have? And so somebody, I've been here 50 years on the planet, right? When somebody tells me, I didn't really understand until now, even though I applaud people changing, even that makes me go, that kind of proves how insidious this problem is. that somebody can be on the planet for this long, can be exposed to everything that's been happening, not to know that this happens, not to see that your fellow brothers and sisters, your fellow human beings are being exposed to this. So it's a two-edged sword for me, to be honest, Jimmy. On the one hand, I'm disappointed, I'm angry, I'm hurt, I'm upset, but at the same time, I'm like not surprised. I feel thankful that I have seen some of this, even though it's hurtful. I'm like, I don't really want to see another hateful message. I've received plenty of them, for sure. Most of them usually are in private because they probably don't want to say it in public. So I've had lots of that, and I've had the opportunity to witness those people who literally will shout people down. And I think that's what, if somebody really wants to say they're an ally, if somebody really wants to say I'm anti-racist, and it isn't good enough just to say I deplore racism, I don't like it, and they want to say more than prejudice exists everywhere. If people really want to do that, and they really want to be advocates and champions, then they have to call it out, even when it means you might lose out as a consequence. You may lose friends, you may lose income, you may have a target on your back because of your stance. I think that's the reality of what people need to do.
Well,
and
personally, I've lost 1,000 Instagram followers. I've since gained back 300 new, better ones, apparently. So that's good. And on my Facebook page, which I know you're active on, and you kind of said, "Hey, Jimmy, what's going on over at your keto?" I go over and go, "What the heck?" And it was mayhem, and I think it's just a product of the culture. Long before all this came loose, people were turd balls online. So let's be honest about it. It's just exacerbated it to this new level. Let me address that there, though, because you said you're both happy about the new allyship, and I'm trying to be one of those allies, by the way. I've loved you, and I've had no animosity in my heart towards you personally, but now I'm trying to be more proactive and anti-racist, as you're saying. But at the same time, you said, but you're kind of disappointed that people like myself didn't see it before now. And I can tell you, at least from my perspective, I don't speak for all white people, just as you don't speak for all black people, that it was so ingrained in us that this was the normal. And again, I know the rightness in your heart should tell you it wasn't normal, but you get it reinforced. Oh, black people are thugs and criminals. And I've watched the 15th documentary, and I realized, oh my gosh, that was indoctrination to kind of portray black people in that way. But that's the way it got ingrained into white people's brains. And I'm not trying to excuse it. I'm just saying that there is a little bit of an awakening that's happened this year that's not been there before, that's new. And so as your brother, to say, be welcoming that it is happening. And I get the skepticism, why didn't you know before? But at least we know now.
So I mean, that's a really good point. And I suppose this is and that's why I'm saying I can kind of understand when people go, like, I'm really trying, can we just get some credit at least for that, for making the effort? And I suppose what I'm saying is, in terms of my, the disappointment, is that, let me, like this, because this problem is systemic and institutionalized, I don't feel you or white people should feel guilty for not being aware of everything, right? We're not omniscient, all-seeing, all-knowing creatures, right? I suppose that's not so much the point. It's the fact that for a long time, when people have been speaking out about this, people haven't been willing to listen. I suppose that's more of the point.
You know why? You know why?
Why
to listen? Because the tone by which the message has been said matter. And it seems, again, that it was coming and an angry tone with some of the key leaders. And then, of course, the monkey wrench in all this, too, is you've got people that are trying to be reasonable, talking about, Black Lives Mattering, the social injustices and all the things. But got the people that take this and go, I can take advantage of this and get this group against this group. And then they're the ones, the ruckus. And that's what the white people are seeing and saying, see, that's why I don't want to be a part of it. So that's the challenge of the message.
It is a challenge, but I mean, I think, again, like, I think that's a get out. That's an easy get out, to be fair, because it's a bit like saying, okay, I'll give you an example. It's a bit like saying, because the Ku Klux Klan say that they are a Christian organization, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant organization, that means all Christians, right, who are white should be cast in the same light. Because there may be some in the Black Lives Matter movement who may use it in a way to be extreme or to really to take advantage, so to speak. Like, that happens in all areas of life.
Right.
But again, we wouldn't hear. But this is the point I'm trying to make. Like, how many Black people have you heard say that? There's a point. So white people are able to say things like, well, you know what? Yeah, there are some Black people who take advantage of that, like they're piggybacking on the Black Lives Matter movement. And, that's why white people don't understand, because they just see that. And I'm like, well, yeah, imagine if everyone saw the world in that way. And so that view, that's part of why people say that's why they use this term white privilege. Because white people still have the advantage of being able to say things like that and feel that it's okay, because why would that be problematic? We're just seeing something, we're observing something, and can you understand why people feel that there's a problem? And it's like, well, yeah, I do, but if it was the other way around, that would not be said. And I think I used this in I did a comic strip. I did a comic strip about Black Lives Matter called Broken Limbs Matter, right? And
it's really great.
And I basically said, if I had a broken arm and I said, hey guys, look, I've got a broken arm, right? And I'm going to expand on that just based on the point you just made. If I have a broken arm, right, and I go, hey, I need some help with my broken arm, and somebody said to me, well, look, all human body parts matter. Why are you just focusing on broken arms? Like, there's all these other problems that exist. And it's like, well, yeah, but this is what we're focusing on right now, this broken arm. And imagine if you said to me, well, Darryl, there's a problem with that. The problem is there are some people who wear like false slings. There are people who don't really have broken arms that say that they do. That would not be a justification. That would be the worst possible thing to say, because it's not acknowledging the people who genuinely do have broken arms, who do need help, who do need to be healed. Do you know what I'm saying? So yes, there are always going to be scoundrels. There are always going to be people who want to take advantage. But I won't say to myself, I'm not going to donate to charity, because some people, if I put money in the charity box, some of those people are going to take the money and use it themselves. So that's it. I'm not going to. This is an analogous to that point that you're making, Jimmy, and I know we had some discussions on because that was one of the posts you made, and I commented on it, and that's the point I suppose I was trying to make.
Sure.
Was that yes, there are people who are doing bad things. All humans do bad things, and if there's a particular focal point which is really large, and in a lot of cases is valid. It's not always going to be valid. Some people are going to exaggerate. Some people are going to underplay it even. Some people are going to say it's not really a problem. Even those who are affected, like, oh, it's not that bad. That's going to happen. But we need to look at the nucleus of the problem, I would say. And I think for most people who say it's not that much of a problem because look at these problems here and there, they're just using that as a distraction tactic, focusing on the real issue. And just to finish that point, another point I made talking about this is like talking about cancer. So if I said, Jimmy, let's have a discussion about testicular cancer, and we had a lengthy discussion. What are the causes? Why does it happen? How can you fix it? Blah, 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 blah. We had this whole discussion. And then you post it on your social media, and so did I. And you just got loads of comments going, I can't believe how sexist that conversation was. Like, what? Why? Testicular cancer, women aren't affected by that. Why mention that when women aren't affected, you know? Or somebody said, I can't believe it, you're talking just about testicular cancer. What about breast cancer? That kills more people. Why don't you mention that? You know what? You know. So it's the same. It's the same. And we would be horrified. Well, I would be, if I saw comments like that. I'd be like, no, it's not. I'm not anti. I'm not anti breast cancer. I'm not against other forms of cancer. But we're talking about something very specific. We're talking about testicular cancer, which usually, you know, only affects men directly, right? So that's what this is about. And it's easy to see when we use this metaphor to describe the differences. And we need more of that, I suppose, Jimmy. We need more people to say, let's use better ways, other parables of describing this problem.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what we need.
What I love about you, Darryl, and it's why you and I have been longtime friends. You're a thinker. I remember one time you came on one of my events and you were asking all the questions of all the speakers. And I'm like, we need more people like Darryl out there. And I agree with you, by the way. In fact, I just, as of the recording of this today, just put out a post on social media about how we need to be more understanding of people's perspectives because they may be looking at it with a different perception and a different angle than we are. So rather than lashing out at them as our enemy, let's try to see where you're coming from. What part of this picture are you looking at? Because I don't see what you're seeing.
Yeah.
And the posted was of this lion holding their cub in their mouth, and it was obvious carrying them around. From the other way, it looks like they're eating the cub. And so perspectives, it matters. And I appreciate yours, by the way, where you're explaining that we don't need to be looking at the Black Lives Matter organization that might be causing a ruckus. How do white people, and I definitely don't want to belabor this too much because how do white people find the people who are genuine? Like, what are the key things we need to be looking for and seeing?
I mean, that's a really tough question to answer. I suppose, you know, you have to, we have to use, humans have to use discernment and decide what they believe to be true or false in lots of different ways. This is no different. So like, and again, this is what this kind of, you know, this is what I find difficult sometimes. It's like, yes, this is new to many of us. The depths of it, the comprehension of it is different, and we want to make the right decisions. The first thing I'd probably say is don't expect to feel comfortable. Unfortunately, don't expect not to be challenged, because that's how progress is made. I mean, I suppose it ties in quite nicely to the beginning of the conversation. You know, adversity, you know, sometimes, you know, conflict helps to, you know, the resolution of conflict gets us to a better place. So sometimes you have to go with the greatest body of evidence, I suppose, right? That's what we have to do. There are always going to be, you know, just like if you and I were talking about, you know, okay, let's imagine I was vegan, right? And I says, hey, can you, Darryl, you know, I love meat. You know, I just don't get the way, you know, what you plants only, right? Can you try and help me understand? I mean, we know what's going to happen, right? I cannot help you to understand why I may feel that that's the better way. You would have to say to yourself, I want to make this change, and I will do whatever I can to understand why Darryl feels that way. Whether I agree or disagree, I want to understand as to why. And that's what I think everyone should do, wherever they're at. Be educated. Understand why somebody, you know, like we spoke about, you know, people who want to take down Thomas Jefferson's statue. Like, why? founding father, how the hell could anyone think that would be appropriate? You know, if it wasn't for him, you know, we wouldn't have the Bill of Rights and blah 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 blah. So if you only look at things through one lens, then there's no argument as to why that his statue shouldn't be affected. But if you look at other aspects of his life, you may have a different point of view, and that's what's needed. That's the sort of nuance. If I was in Germany 400 years from now, would we, you know, if 200 years from now somebody said, you know what, we should admire leaders of our state throughout history. Adolf Hitler, we should have a statue to him. We should do, because hey, he had the biggest German empire ever. So let's laud him, let's applaud him for the wonderful leader he was. He was charismatic. He galvanized his people. Wow. You know, people could do that. They could have justification as to why he should have a statue. If 200 years after that, people said, hold a second, don't you realize what he did in the Second World War? Ah, but times were different back then. You know, people didn't have they weren't as evolved back then as they are now. The rules have changed. The landscape has changed. So why should we rewrite history? So maybe, and I'm hoping people would say, that's a bad example. No one would expect that to happen. No one would accept that happening. Why then do we laud some of these characters? Again, not all of them, but why do we laud some of these characters that were only elevated way after they were living? So after we were able to weigh up the good and the bad, the pros and the cons.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, some of that went up in the midst of when we were still going through, at least here in America, Jim Crow laws and some of the others that were trying to. So I get what you're saying, although some people might take offense that you compared Thomas Jefferson to Adolf Hitler. So.
Well, yeah, some people would, but I mean, you know, some people would, but he in the founding document,
right,
which is an incredible document, right? He said, "What? Right. All men are created equal."
Right.
Right. But yet, I was not a part of that document.
Right.
I wasn't deemed to be I wasn't deemed to be human. Well, you know, I didn't exist, but me as in my heritage.
Right. I know.
Right. So fine. If you're judging a person based on the number of deaths
right
committed in the Holocaust,
right,
if that's what you're basing it on, then yes. But that's not. You know, people aren't judged just based on one act. It's a continuation. It's a continuation of what meant further enslavement,
right?
Which meant Jim Crow was still justified and segregation was justified based on those beliefs. So yeah, again, this is part of the difficult conversation.
Yeah,
and this is why it's uncomfortable because, you know, if you think about some of the most applauded characters in history, right? Wherever you go, whatever part of the world, we know both sides of these individuals equally. We know the good, we know the bad. Alexander the Great, Julius Caesar, you know, different kings and queens of history. We know the good and the bad, the warts and all, right? And so if we just want to be balanced in the present day and we say, yes, we want a statue to say this person was important because they founded this or they had a certain wealth or whatever, then we should also say, well, okay, how did they get their wealth? That should also be part of the discussion, right? What decisions did they make whilst they were alive? That should also be part of the discussion. And then that way we can judge them in the present based on their good and bad. And that's probably fairer than just saying they're a hero or just saying, let's just forget everything about them and wipe them out. So I think we should be able to have intelligent discussions and balanced discussions where people's opinions have changed. Right. And I don't know.
And I think education moving forward is going to reflect that more, where we see all sides. Because when quite frankly, I was a kid of the 80s. And by the way, recently, happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
About the same age. You forever. You always were like, I'm not gonna tell you what my age is. I'm like, he's like a year older than me. So so
yeah.
I think moving forward, it's going to be different than what I was taught of kind of this whitewashed, with all pun intended. I think we're going to see more of an incorporation, and I wanted to know about some of those integrations, and I'm hopeful moving forward that becomes a part of the worldwide education. I know here in America, the education has been lacking in that area. I don't know what it's like in the UK, but
same here. Yeah, I mean, I think yeah, let's hope that comes out, because then it's easier for people to understand, like history tends to be his story, tends to be written from the male perspective. It tends to be written from the victors or those in charge or the oppressors, depending on your point of view. That's the reality.
Right.
And it doesn't mean everything. It doesn't mean that everyone should accept collective responsibility for the wrongs of the past. It doesn't mean that. But look at what the Germans did to try. They almost went on an accelerated drive to try to say, we really messed up, didn't we? Like, really, what can we do to try to make things better? And it doesn't mean that there aren't people who still have those points of view, because of course there are. It doesn't mean that you eradicate all of that, but it means that I suppose the social consciousness has improved, so that people have a far greater understanding. There's a fairer representation of what happened in history, warts and all. And so the fact that, for example, I had no awareness. There's an African emperor an African emperor from the Roman Empire that's buried here in York in the UK. I was taught about the Roman Empire at school.
Right.
Was never taught this. Hadrian's Wall, his son actually built Hadrian's Wall that separates England from Scotland. So there's all of this history, and there's a lot more. So when you're told that somebody of my descent only came to the England in the 40s after the Second World War, but if you look at history, you find out that people from the Caribbean, which is my heritage, they fought in the Second and First World War. That Africans have been here from the 1st, 2nd century AD, who weren't slaves, who were actually citizens of the Roman Empire. That's a significant difference in perspective, right? And so one part of that history was written in order to continue the subjugation of people, to say we are superior, that your lives only began when we picked you up and took you here. And then the other saying, actually, this is what really happened. And then there was a shift, there was a change that meant the transatlantic slave trade began and continued. So there's again, we could talk about this for hours, but once education changes, so if people do want to understand, just get more educated. Speak to people like me who will tell you about their experiences. And then you can decide, was that racism? Was it systemic racism? Because the two are different, actually. Was it systemic? Was it institutionalized? Was it just prejudice? Was it just because somebody didn't like him? Is it problematic? Should Darryl feel traumatized by that? If it happened to me, how would I feel? If it happened to me hundreds of times, how would I feel? Oh my goodness, this is what the reality is. I've never had to feel that way. Okay, that's something you can digest.
I love it.
Yeah.
Again, you guys, Fitness Explorer, go check him out over on Instagram. He is Darryl Edwards, and he's got this cool set of cards called Animal Moves. You wrote a book called Animal Moves if you're interested in the primal play. But I'm going to give you a surprise, Darryl. I want you to throw me through a quick workout at the end here. Are you ready?
All right, we can do one simply. So if you want to, I wasn't expecting that. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to get your brain, left and right brain working, as well as your body. So you're going to be marching pace. So you probably won't be able to see my knees, but oh well. Okay, so you're going to march and you're going to tap your shoulder, 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 knee, knee. All right, let me go a little bit. Let me make it a bit easier for you to see me.
Am I doing it? Uh-oh, did he freeze? I think he froze. Darryl! I think he's frozen. Oh, he's back. Are you back?
I'm back now.
Okay.
Yes, I'm back now.
I think I was...
Yeah, I think it's because... Yes, that's exactly right. You got it. You got it. Okay? So knee, knee. All right? And then you're going to do hips. So shoulder, shoulder, hip, hip, knee, knee.
Okay.
All right? So shoulder, shoulder, hip, hip, knee, knee. Shoulder, shoulder, hip, hip, knee, knee. Yeah, good. So the coordination is a bit of a challenge to the brain. Good. All right. And the last one is you're going to touch the foot as well. So shoulder, shoulder, hip, hip, knee, knee, toe, toe. Good. Nice. Yeah, that's a good one. Knee, your hips, hips, knee, knee, toe, toe. Good, nice.
Oh, well.
It's a nice little movement snack.
I am breathing hard, so good job. Woo! Well, dude, let me catch my breath. It's hard to podcast.
Well, that's your fault. You did ask me. You did ask for it.
I did. I love you, man. You are an amazing human being, and I'm just so... See, you worked me good. When I can't breathe, that means I worked hard. So
it's good. Yes.
And how simple was that?
Yeah.
For being
additional challenge because of the coordination. So even more oxygen is needed to get to the brain, and you're having to think about what you're doing. So yeah, it's a playful activity.
Well, I have plenty of blood flowing to the brain for my next podcast interview. Darryl, so much here today and all your wisdom, and dude, just keep doing your great work.
Oh, thank you so much, Jim. It's been a real pleasure. Speak to you soon.